is the whole brotherhood is about war. If they get into a war and you're fighting in a war, now picture yourself fighting in a war and you're shooting and whatever, and you look next to you and there's another guy and you don't know him. You're obviously still going to want to fight hard for like the people you do know that is in your group or culture. But if you know the guy next to you, that's going to make you fight 10 times harder.
Extra motivation.
Exactly. It's extra motivation. It's going to make you fight 10 times harder because the guy next to you could be your best friend, and you want to make sure that you not only protect him, you not only protect yourself, but you also protect him. And this also, towards the end of this whole thing, led to more land, people, farms, trade, and then independence. Because they had farms and stuff like that, they didn't want to become fully independent because that's not what the Puritans wanted. But they also did not want to be dependent upon the Indians. They didn't want to be dependent on anyone else. So that's why they started the farms, and the more people came over because they could farm and they could provide for themselves while trading some of the stuff that they had that other people didn't. And that's how they kicked everything off.
Before we move on, I would like to read document J. It's very important. My fathers and brethren, this is never to be forgotten, that New England is originally a plantation of religion, not a plantation of trade. Let merchants and such as are increasing cent per cent remember this, that worldly gain was not the end and designer of the people of New England, but religion. That just goes back to this, how religion and plantation are tied together and New England.
Economic. Okay. Document A. We must be knit together in this work as one man. That is what document A stated, and that is just another thing to what I just talked about in the social development. Everybody in the colony believed, everybody in the Puritans believed that in order to get bigger, move on, and stay together and flourish, they all had that one belief that we need to be knit together and they need to work as one man. They all need to be on the same page. Less disagreements and arguments, which led me to they need to be on one page and they need to be as one man. Because obviously, one man isn't going to argue with himself. Other people who have different ideas and stuff, they're going to argue. And when people argue in their culture, that's what creates hell in the culture. And then if someone tries to attack them, if they're fighting with themselves, that's not going to make them fight better against the people who are coming to attack them. Like I said before, you want to all be on one page so that if stuff does come and people try to attack, the guy fighting next to you is your best friend. You're going to work 10 times harder.
There's also a map later on coming up that shows how they lived and how tight it was and how they were really close to each other.
Like I said, fight as one. They started out in education, but like we said before, they ended up creating one of the best universities in the world, Harvard. The whole thing about education was now they thought that they needed to start a government, so they needed to educate people, and that's how they started the education. We have a quote from document E that Smitty is going to read.
After God had carried us safe to New England, and we had built our houses, provided necessaries for our livelihood, reared convenient places for God's worship, and settled the civil government, one of the next things we longed for and looked after was to advance learning.
This would be, educators, would be the men of letters, Oxford of Cambridge, which means, if you don't know, Oxford or Cambridge were also two of the best colleges over in Europe. And these educators who came over were going to now teach the people who weren't educated here. Now, those two colleges are very prestigious, just as prestigious as Harvard. And I feel that if I were them, I feel very honored to be taught by a man who was educated at these two universities, which leads to show how smart these men were, because the men that they taught became very successful.
The map. So this is a town map of colonial New England. You can see how very close everything is, house by house. a very little small road in between. Very, very compact, which brings back to Joe's point. The flat is one. We can also see woods, river, and swamp and woodland and cow pasture. All these things are good. For example, the river. They can fish there. It's also a very good supply of water, which helps them to feed families and stuff. They can go to the woods, hunt for animals. And
let me just throw something in there. Water was said to be the what kept the economical part of the Puritans or any culture or colony going. Constant water flow means constant water for them to drink, water for them to cook, water for them to get fish that live in the obviously in the river. So constant water flow was just a thing was also to describe constant economical and all of these constant of them keep going, and obviously as you know water is constantly flowing.
So the water pretty much runs you. So without water, it's tough to. But so the water was very important. So they had a river flowing right there. I just wanted to quickly show that they did have a school there, which is very good. They had a church. They had minister's house and mill, the village green, and all of these, those are farmlands. All of that.
They were individually owned. As you can see, they also had animals, and they had cow and ox. And now, if you don't know, an ox is very strong, and they would use it to pull plows and stuff. And cows, they could be used for things just like that, and also meat.
Milk, butter,
and then Smitty explained the schools and the church. The minister lives very close to the church, obviously, because he is the head of the church, most likely, the minister. Town hall was in the center, because obviously that's where everything went down, and this is where everybody else lived. And they had the mill for the river that the water ran through.
So the wrap up. They made changes for themselves, such as education. They started Harvard College.
Education to educate themselves, so that they could start the new things. They did. They obviously made changes in the religion. That's why they came over. They wanted to make a change in religion. Wanted to educate. They wanted to convert people. They wanted to purify the people that were over here already. If they did believe in Christianity, they wanted to change their belief. And obviously, they also started a democracy and voting. And they did this because the people who were educated believed that if they were going to work as one, they also needed to have someone who was going to be the head and in charge. And they wanted to vote for the people who were going to be a part of the democracy. And they all agreed upon this because they all were on the same page and they were all as one. And that's why they made all of these changes to affect the colonies when they came over.
Thank you very much. This is our presentation.
Thank you.